The encounter, the alien research ship floated in the silent darkness of space. Beneath it lay the broken ruins of a battlefield, where human ships had fallen and fire still burned across the planet's surface. The war had ended, but not all. We're dead. One human survived, and his name was Ethan. Ethan was dragged into the cold, metallic chamber of the alien ship. His hands were locked in glowing chains, his body weak but his eyes sharp. He had seen death. He had seen the destruction of his team, but he was still alive. The aliens thought he was a weak animal, but inside, Ethan was waiting, watching, and planning. The alien scientist, Zealer, stood tall with his silver skin and black eyes. He had studied many species, but this human was different. The council had ordered him to examine the human, to find out why he had survived when others had not. Zealer looked at Ethan as if he was a puzzle. Ethan stared back, not afraid, but curious. "Strange creature," Zealer muttered, his voice soft but full of interest. "Your body is small, fragile. Yet you resist death again and again." Ethan gave no answer, only a small smile. He knew silence was more powerful than words. Zealer moved closer, his long fingers reaching for Ethan's chest. The human's heart beat steady and strong, even after all the pain. "Your organs are strange," Zealer whispered. "They react with energy we do not understand." Ethan let him speak, but his mind was already searching the room for weakness. The chamber was quiet except for the sound of machines humming. Cold light shone down on Ethan's body, making him look pale but unbroken. Zealer touched his arm, and Ethan's skin twitched. The alien pulled back in surprise. His eyes glowing with sudden interest, he leaned forward, studying the human even closer. Then his gaze fell lower, noticing something that made him tilt his head. Ethan's body had reacted in a way the alien did not expect. Zealer's voice dropped into a whisper, full of shock and curiosity. "Human, why does your breeding tool react to my touch?" The words echoed in the chamber, sharp and strange. Ethan laughed, a quiet and bitter laugh that made the alien freeze. "You really don't understand humans," Ethan said finally, his voice low but strong. "We are not machines. We are not numbers on your screen. We react because we feel." Zealer stepped back, confusion in his eyes. He had studied thousands of species, but never one that reacted in such unpredictable ways. Pain, stress, fear, even touch. The human body responded with fire. To Zealer, it was both dangerous and fascinating. The alien wrote quickly on a glowing pad, recording every reaction, but inside, his mind was burning with questions. Why did this small species evolve this way? Why did they resist when other creatures surrendered? Ethan sat still, but his smile grew wider. He knew the alien was beginning to fear what he could not explain. That fear was Ethan's weapon, sharper than any blade. The longer Zealer studied him, the more he would see the truth, that humans were not prey, but predators in disguise outside the chamber. Other aliens whispered among themselves, "Kill the human before it grows stronger." One voice said, "He is dangerous," said another, but Zealer ignored them. He wanted to know more. Something deep inside him told him this human was different. The ship drifted quietly above the burning planet. Inside, the silent war between captor and prisoner had begun. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, pretending to rest, but his mind was awake, sharp, ready, every sound, every light. Every step of the alien was a piece of his escape plan. Zealer stood in the shadows, his black eyes fixed on the human. He did not see weakness, he did not see prey. He saw something else, something that made even his cold, alien heart tremble. The human was smiling in chains, and that smile carried a promise of danger, a promise of survival. The encounter was not over, it had only just begun. Curiosity turns dangerous. The alien ship was quiet, yet tension filled every corner. Ethan sat in the cold chamber, his hands still locked by glowing chains. But something had changed. The scientist Zealer did not see him as just another prisoner anymore. He saw him as a mystery waiting to be solved. Zealer studied his notes again and again, The human's reactions made no sense. Pain made him stronger, stress kept him alive, and even a simple touch had triggered a response that the alien could not explain. No other species in the galaxy acted this way. Xyler whispered to himself, "Why does this fragile body carry such dangerous secrets?" The alien council sent messages through glowing screens. Their voices were sharp, their words full of warning. "End the experiment," they ordered. "Kill the human before his biology spreads chaos inside the ship." But Xyler ignored them. Curiosity had already taken control of his mind. Late in the night cycle, when other aliens rested, Xyler returned to Ethan's cell. The human was awake, sitting still, his eyes glowing with quiet fire. "You should not be alive," Xyler said softly. "Your wounds, your mind, even your heart, they refuse to die." Ethan gave him a small grin. "Maybe you are asking the wrong question," he replied. "Instead of wondering why I live, you should wonder why your kind fears that I live." Those words struck Xyler deeper than any weapon. Fear, yes, it was true. The council feared humans. Though they never admitted it, they called them primitive and weak. But their orders to kill Ethan proved otherwise. Xyler leaned closer, his black eyes searching the human's face. "What makes you so different?" he asked. Ethan whispered, "We fight because we must, not because we can." The alien scientist felt his pulse quicken. This was no ordinary subject. This was a living weapon, but part of him wanted to see how far that weapon could go. Xyler placed a thin silver device on Ethan's skin. It was meant to drain his energy, to test resistance, but instead of weakening, Ethan's body fought back. His heart raced, his muscles tightened, and his eyes grew brighter. The alien pulled his hand away in shock. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Your body resists even my machines." Ethan laughed quietly, sound echoing in the silent room. "Maybe your machines are not ready for humans," he said. Xyler's curiosity twisted into something darker, obsession. Every reaction from Ethan made him want to see more, but he also knew one thing. The more he pushed, the closer he came to danger. Outside the cell, guards whispered among themselves. They had seen the human's strength. They had seen his strange healing. Some wanted to kill him at once. Others wanted to study him longer. But all of them agreed on one thing. This creature was not safe. Back in the chamber, Xyler touched the glowing chains. "Do you know why you still live, human?" he asked. Ethan's smile faded, his voice steady. "I live because I refuse to die." The answer was so simple, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 battles. It was not science, not numbers, not logic. It was will, pure and sharp. Xyler felt something shift inside him. For the first time, he was not sure if he was the master or the student. Every test revealed more power. Every word from Ethan revealed more danger. The scientist's curiosity had grown into a fire. But fires burn, and fires spread, and Xyler was standing too close later. When he walked through the dark halls of the ship, voices called to him again. "Kill the human now," the council repeated. But Xyler's mind was already made. He would not kill the human. He would protect him, study him, and learn from him, even if it meant betraying his own people. Back in the chamber, Ethan closed his eyes. He could feel the shift too. The alien was no longer just a scientist. He was becoming something else, an ally, or maybe even a threat. Either way, Ethan knew one truth: curiosity had turned dangerous. And danger was the one place where humans always survived. The ship drifted in silence above the ruined planet. But inside, a storm had begun. Not of weapons or war, but of knowledge and fear. Xyler could not stop himself. And Ethan would not let himself lose. Two minds locked together. Two species colliding in a quiet battle. And somewhere deep inside the ship, alarms began to whisper, warning that greater danger was coming. Secrets of human biology. The alien ship floated in silence, but inside the chamber, something was growing stronger. Ethan sat chained, yet his eyes burned with quiet fire. Xyler stood across from him, studying every reaction with a hunger that was no longer scientific, it was personal now. The scientist wanted answers, no matter the cost. Zyler placed a new device on Ethan's chest. It was designed to read every signal in his body. Beams of light scanned his skin, reading pulse, nerves, and blood. The screen filled with strange patterns, spikes of energy, waves of power, things no alien had ever seen before. Zyler stared, his voice shaking. "This cannot be real, Ethan." Smiled faintly, his voice calm. "Your machines see only a shadow of what I am." Zyler frowned. He pressed the device harder, trying to capture more data. The spikes grew higher, the waves stronger. The machine began to spark, unable to keep up with the human's body. Zyler ripped it away before it broke, his hands trembling. No. Other species had ever done this. Pain weakened them, stress killed them, fear shut them down, but humans? Pain made them rise, stress sharpened them, fear gave them strength. Zyler whispered to himself, "Your biology is madness." The alien council called again, their voices sharp. "You are wasting time," they said. "This creature is dangerous. Destroy it." But Zyler silenced the call. His curiosity was greater than his fear. He turned back to Ethan. "What are you really?" he asked. Ethan tilted his head, his chains clinking softly. "I am what you fear most," he answered. "A survivor." The words cut deep into Zyler's mind. He thought about the history logs. The ancient records spoke of humans who fought. Impossible wars, small numbers against great armies, fragile bodies against powerful monsters, and still, humans endured, always adapting, always surviving. Zyler stepped closer, his voice low. "You should not exist," Ethan laughed softly. "And yet, here I am." The scientist decided to push further. He released a thin mist into the chamber, a gas meant to slow heartbeats and weaken muscles. Any other creature would collapse, but Ethan coughed once, then steadied himself. His body fought back, sweat dripping down his face, but his eyes never dimmed. The machines recorded everything, showing numbers that made no sense. Zyler whispered, "Even poison bends to your will." The guards outside watched through the glass. They muttered among themselves, "This human will kill us all if we keep him alive." One said, "Maybe that is why the council fears them." Another replied, "They did not notice that Ethan could hear their voices." And every word only made his smile sharper. Ethan's mind worked in silence. He counted every guard, every weapon, every sound the ship made. The aliens thought they were studying him, but he was studying them. Every test, every scan, every mistake they made was a piece of his escape plan. Zyler turned back, still lost in thought. He wanted to understand, but he was also beginning to feel something he never expected: respect. For the first time in his life, he looked at a prisoner not as a subject, but as an equal. Dangerous, yes, but equal. He leaned closer, his voice a whisper. "You are not just biology, human. You are something more." Ethan's eyes locked onto his. "We are what your kind will never understand," he said. "Hope." The word struck Zyler like a blade. Hope, a concept his people had lost long ago. They lived with cold logic, with strict orders, with no room for dreams. But this human, chained and broken, still carried hope like a weapon. Zyler felt fear crawl inside his chest. Not fear of Ethan escaping, but fear of what it would mean if humans spread across the stars. Suddenly, alarms rang through the ship. A rival alien faction was approaching, their ships glowing in the dark. The guards panicked, rushing through the halls. Zyler turned sharply. "They cannot know I kept you alive," he said, his voice tense. Ethan smiled wider. "Then maybe it is time you decide whose side you are on." Zyler froze, his mind torn between duty and curiosity, between orders and survival. Outside, the enemy drew closer inside. The secret of human biology pulsed like a storm, and at the center of it all, Ethan waited, chains on his body, but freedom in his mind. The human was more than flesh, more than science. He was the one thing the aliens could never measure, a living secret, a dangerous truth. And that truth was about to break free. Escape and revelation. The alien ship shook as alarms echoed through the long steel corridors. Red lights flashed against the walls, warning of an enemy attack from outside. But inside the chamber, another storm was brewing. Ethan sat chained, his eyes calm but sharp. Zyler stood frozen, torn between orders and curiosity. The human had become more than an experiment. He was now a choice. The guards rushed past the chamber doors, preparing to defend the ship. Their voices carried fear. Enemy vessels approaching. Shields failing, one shouted. Another snarled. Forget the human. Focus on the battle. But Ethan heard every word, and a plan formed in his mind. Zyler turned back to his subject. You must remain here, he said. If they discover you, they will kill us both. Ethan leaned forward, his voice steady. They already want me dead, Zyler. But you still have a choice. Help me, and you will learn more than your council ever dreamed. Or let me die, and you will lose your greatest discovery. The alien scientist hesitated, his long fingers hovering over the control panel. The chains glowed bright around Ethan's wrists and ankles. One touch of a command could release him, but releasing him could also unleash chaos. Zyler's black eyes narrowed. Why should I trust you, human? Ethan smiled, even in chains, because deep down, you already do. A loud explosion rocked the ship, throwing them both to the ground. The chamber walls shook. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Zyler looked at the door, then back at Ethan. The human was still chained, but his spirit was unbroken. In that moment, Zyler made his choice. With a trembling hand, he pressed the command. The glowing chains dissolved into smoke. Ethan stood, his muscles stiff but ready. For the first time since capture, he was free. The guards outside did not notice yet. They were too busy shouting orders, their weapons ready for the enemy boarding. Ships. Ethan stretched his arms, feeling blood rush back into them. He looked at Zyler, his voice calm but sharp. You freed me, but remember this. I am no one's pet. Zyler gave a small nod. I know, he said quietly. That is why. You are dangerous. Ethan scanned the room quickly. His eyes locked onto a metal shard lying on the floor from the explosion. He picked it up, holding it like a blade, not perfect, but enough. Humans had always turned scraps into weapons. It was in their nature. The door hissed open suddenly. 2 guards stepping in. Their eyes widened when they saw the human standing free. Contain him. One shouted, raising his weapon. Ethan moved faster than they expected. He slammed the shard into the first guard's chest. The alien collapsed with a hiss of pain. The second guard fired, but Ethan grabbed his arm. Twisting hard until the weapon dropped, he struck once, and the alien fell. Silent, Zyler stared, half in fear, half in awe. He had just witnessed human adaptability in its purest form. No training, no alien weapon, only instinct and will. And still, Ethan had survived. The alarms grew louder, the ship's walls trembled. Again, as enemy fire struck, Ethan picked up the alien weapon from the floor. He turned to Zyler. Where is the way out? Zyler hesitated, his mind racing. If he helped the human escape, he would betray his people forever. But if he left him, he would never know the truth he craved. Finally, he spoke. The docking bay, 2 levels below. But it is guarded, Ethan nodded. Then stay close, because I don't plan on dying today. Together, they slipped into the dark corridors. The ship was chaos. Alarms screaming, soldiers running, enemies breaking through the walls. In the middle of the storm, a human and an alien walked side by side. One with chains newly broken, the other with loyalty newly tested. As they moved through the halls, Ethan noticed something. The aliens fought hard. But they lacked something. They followed orders, they obeyed commands. But they did not fight with spirit. Humans, he thought, were different. Humans fought not just to win, but to survive, to protect, to endure. At the corner of the corridor, more guards appeared, weapons raised. Ethan pressed his back to the wall, his voice low. Do not make a sound. He told Zyler. The guards rushed past, Heading to the battle above, Ethan waited, then moved silently behind them, his movements sharp. Every step was survival, every breath a calculation. When they finally reached the lower deck, Ethan stopped. The docking bay door loomed ahead, sealed tight. Beyond it, freedom. But around it, guards stood ready, weapons glowing. Ethan tightened his grip on the stolen gun. Zyler whispered, "It is suicide." Ethan smiled, his voice calm. "That is what humans do best." The guards turned as the alarms roared louder. And in that instant, Ethan stepped forward, not as a prisoner, not as prey, but as something more. A revelation wrapped in flesh and blood. The secret the aliens had tried to chain, now free, now dangerous, now human. The alien betrayal. The docking bay shook with thunder as the enemy ships clamped onto the hull. Metal screamed, sparks fell from the ceiling, and the walls trembled like a beast in pain. Ethan stood at the edge of the bay, weapon in hand, eyes sharp. Beside him, Zyler watched with cold silence, his black eyes darting between the human and the chaos outside. Guards rushed in lines, shouting orders, forming walls of defense. But fear was heavy in their voices. They fought because the council commanded, not because their hearts burned to survive. Ethan saw the weakness instantly. Humans always noticed the cracks in armor. It was how they survived. A blast tore the docking bay doors open. Smoke and fire poured inside. From the flames stepped enemy aliens, taller, darker, armored like predators, their eyes locked on Ethan. "There," one growled. "The human." Zyler stiffened. The enemy did not care about the ship or even the council. They wanted Ethan, not to kill him, but to capture him. Ethan smirked bitterly. "Looks like I'm popular." The council's guards panicked. "Protect the human. He belongs to us." One shouted, another hissed, "No, destroy him before they take him." Their voices clashed. Confusion spreading like fire. Some raised weapons toward Ethan, others toward the enemy. And in that moment of hesitation, betrayal was born. A guard near Zyler turned, weapon glowing. "Scientist, step aside." He snarled, "The human dies here." Zyler's body froze, but his mind raced. Kill Ethan and end the threat, or protect him and defy his people. His hand trembled, torn between fear and curiosity. Ethan saw the hesitation. He did not wait. In one swift move, he grabbed the weapon from a fallen soldier and fired. The betrayer collapsed, smoke rising from his chest. The others turned in shock. Zyler stared at Ethan, his voice a whisper. "You saved me." Ethan's grin was sharp. "Don't get used to it." The enemy aliens stormed forward, their heavy steps shaking the ground. Their voices echoed like thunder. "The human is ours," the council's guards shouted back. "No, he belongs to us." And then, the docking bay exploded into chaos. Weapons fired, beams of light cut across the smoke, bodies fell, screams filled the air. In the center of it all, Ethan moved like a shadow. He was not the strongest, not the fastest, but he was the one who refused to stop. Every strike, every shot, every breath carried the weight of survival. Zyler followed close, torn between fear and awe. He had never seen war like this. His people fought with order, but Ethan fought with fire. Even wounded, even surrounded, he never gave in. That spirit spread like a spark. Even some of the guards who had doubted began to fight harder. They followed the human without realizing it. His will was contagious, but betrayal still lingered. From the shadows, a high-ranking officer raised his weapon, aiming at Ethan's back. He did not care about enemies or allies. He only cared about ending the human before he grew too dangerous. Zyler saw it, his eyes wide. For one moment, he hesitated. Then he stepped forward, striking the officers hand and sending the weapon flying. The officer hissed in rage. "You side with him? You betray your own kind?" Zyler's voice shook, but his words were clear. "I side with the truth." Ethan glanced at him, his smile sharp. "Not bad, scientist." The battle roared louder, enemy forces pressing harder. The ship's walls cracked under the fire, alarms screamed across every deck. The docking bay floor shook as more enemy pods slammed into it. Ethan knew they could not hold forever. "Zyler, what's behind that door?" he shouted, pointing to a sealed hatch. Zyler's mind raced. "A secondary escape shaft. But it leads into the void." Ethan's grin widened. "Good, I like the void." Together, they fought toward the hatch, Ethan firing, striking, dodging. With brutal precision, Zyler behind him, unlocking the codes. Every second felt like a lifetime. Every betrayal, every choice led to this moment. Finally, the hatch opened with a hiss. Cold wind roared through the chamber as the void pulled at them. Guards and enemies alike stumbled, their bodies dragged toward the opening. Ethan grabbed the frame, steadying himself. He reached out and caught Zyler before he slipped away. Their eyes met for a brief second. Two beings from different worlds, bound by survival. Then Ethan shouted above the storm, "This is where we find out who we really are." Behind them, the docking bay burned in chaos. Betrayal had torn the crew apart. Enemies swarmed, guards fought each other. But Ethan and Zyler stepped into the void, not as prisoner and captor, but as something new. Something the galaxy was not ready for. Why humans are feared, the void swallowed them whole. Ethan and Zyler clung to the emergency shaft as the docking bay collapsed behind them. Metal tore apart, bodies vanished into space, and the ship screamed like a dying beast. Yet still, the human held on, his grip strong, his breath steady. Zyler's chest heaved, panic in his veins. But Ethan's eyes burned calm. It was the difference between them. One survived through fear, the other through will. They pulled themselves into a narrow passage, sealing the hatch behind them. Silence filled the corridor, broken only by the distant echoes of battle. Ethan leaned against the wall, blood dripping from his arm. His wound was deep, yet his hands did not shake. Zyler stared, his black eyes wide. "No creature should live after that," he whispered. But the human was alive. Not only alive, he was healing. Zyler knelt, studying the wound as if it was a puzzle. The torn flesh was already closing, cells working faster than any medical system he knew. Ethan grinned weakly. "See? Told you we're stubborn," Zyler whispered. "This is not stubbornness. This is something else." The scientist's mind turned. Memories of old records stirred in him, stories whispered in the dark corners of his academy. Legends about humans, buried in archives as people forbade him to study. He stood suddenly, his voice sharp. "Wait here," he ordered. Then he vanished into the shadows of the corridor. Ethan leaned back, breathing slow, his body fighting to mend itself. He knew what Zyler was doing. The alien was chasing answers, and answers always led to fear. Minutes later, Zyler returned, his hands clutching a glowing tablet. His voice trembled as he spoke. "I accessed the restricted files, the oldest records, the ones the Council hides." He placed the tablet on the floor, and images flickered. In the air, old battles, broken planets, and at the center of it all, humans. Ethan narrowed his eyes. The records showed small bands of human warriors standing against vast alien armies, races stronger, taller, more advanced. Yet always, the humans endured, not with numbers, not with weapons, but with something unseen. Zyler's voice shook as he read the ancient words. "They called you the dangerous species, the ones who rise when others fall, the ones who adapt to every war, every poison, every terror." He looked up at Ethan, his face pale. "Do you understand? My people have always feared you." Ethan smirked, though pain burned in his chest. "Good, then they're smarter than they look." Zyler ignored the joke. His mind spinning, he scrolled further through the records. The logs spoke of entire civilizations wiped away, not by human technology, but by human persistence. Wars that should have ended in human extinction instead ended with alien surrender. Zyler whispered, "Your kind survives not because you are strong, but because you never accept death." Ethan pushed himself to his feet, swaying but steady. "That's what you don't understand, Zyler. Strength isn't about power, or weapons, or control. It's about refusing to give in. No matter how broken you are, the alien scientist's hands shook. For the first time, he felt the weight of what he had done. He had freed something his people had tried to bury, a secret that could tear the galaxy apart, and now, that secret stood in front of him. Smiling through blood, the corridor lights flickered, and voices echoed closer. The enemy was hunting them still. But Xyler barely heard. His mind was drowning in the truth. He whispered, "If the Council learns you survived, they will burn every star to kill you." Ethan stepped forward, his shadow falling across the tablet. "Then let them try." For a moment, silence filled the narrow space. Xyler's heart pounded with both fear and awe. He understood now why. Humans were feared, not because of strength, not because of numbers, but because nothing could break their will. The alien looked at the wound on Ethan's arm, now almost closed. He thought of the legends, of the Forbidden's archives, of the countless warnings. He whispered to himself, maybe the Council was right. Maybe humans are the real predators of the galaxy. Ethan's smile grew sharper. Not predators. Xyler, just survivors, and survival is the most dangerous weapon of all. The ship trembled again as explosions roared outside. The enemy closed in, their shadows crawling closer through the corridors. But Ethan no longer looked weak. He looked like the storm itself, and for the first time, Xyler realized something terrifying. He was no longer studying the human, he was following him. The HFY climaxed. The alien ship groaned like a wounded beast, its halls filled with fire, smoke, and the screams of soldiers. Enemy forces pushed closer, breaking through walls, tearing down defenses. But in the middle of that chaos, Ethan walked forward, chains broken, blood drying on his skin, eyes sharp with fire. Xyler followed behind him, torn between fear and loyalty. He was no longer sure if he was a scientist or a traitor. All he knew was this: the human was not ordinary. He was the storm, and storms did not bow. The enemy commander stepped into the corridor, tall and armored. His voice echoed like thunder. "Surrender the human, or die with him." The Council's guards hesitated, weapons shaking. Some looked at Ethan with hatred, others with awe. Betrayal still hung heavy in the air. But no one moved first. Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady. "You want me? Then come and take me." The commander snarled, charging with blinding speed. But Ethan did not retreat. He moved like fire through the smoke. The alien's blade cut air, but Ethan's strike landed sharp. The commander staggered back, shocked. How could a wounded human fight with such force? Xyler's black eyes widened. He saw the truth again. Humans did not fight because they were stronger. They fought because they refused to stop. That refusal turned weakness into strength, pain into power, fear into fury. The enemy soldiers roared and attacked, the corridor lit with blasts of energy. Ethan moved through them, every strike precise, every breath steady. He used the walls, the floor, even broken scraps as weapons. Where others saw ruin, he saw tools. Where others saw death, he saw survival. The guards who had once doubted now stared in silence. Then something strange happened. They began to fight harder. Not for the Council, not for orders, but because the humans' will burned inside them. It was not logic, it was not science. It was something their kind had long forgotten. Hope. Xyler realized it with a shiver. This was the true danger of humans, not their strength, not their biology, but their spirit. A spirit that spread like fire through every heart that watched them. The commander roared again, slashing with fury. Ethan staggered, blood dripping fresh from his side, but instead of falling, he smiled. "You think that hurts me?" he said, his voice sharp. "It only reminds me that I'm alive." He struck back, his blade of scrap metal driving deep. The commander fell, silence cutting through the chaos. For a moment, the battle paused. All eyes turned to the human standing in blood and smoke, the predator who refused to be prey. Ethan looked at them all, his voice rising like thunder. "You want to know why we survive? It's not because we're strong. It's because we never stop fighting. Even when we're broken, even when we're dying, we rise again. That is what makes us human. The enemy soldiers faltered, doubt spreading through them, the councils. Guards lowered their weapons, confused. Even Xyler felt his breath catch. He whispered, "This is what my people feared. Not your weapons, not your flesh, but your will." Ethan stepped closer, his shadow long in the smoke. "You can chain us, burn us, break us, but you can't make us stop. That's why your kind fears us. Because you know, deep down, one day, we'll outlast you all." The corridor filled with silence. Then one by one, the guards who once wanted him dead lowered their heads, not in surrender, but in respect. Even some enemies backed away, their courage broken, because in that moment, they saw not a man, but the truth of humanity. Xyler stood frozen, his heart pounding. He had studied Ethan as a subject, but now he looked at him as something else. Not prey, not predator, but a force of nature, unstoppable, untamed, unforgettable. The ship shook again as fire spread deeper. Ethan looked at Xyler, his smile sharp. "Time to leave, scientist. This story isn't ending here." Xyler nodded slowly, still trembling. "Yes, it is only beginning." As they moved into the burning halls, the whispers followed them. Whispers of fear, of awe, of respect, human. The voices murmured, "Why does your kind survive when all others fall?" And in the shadows, Ethan's smile carried the answer, because that was what made them human. And that was why the galaxy feared them. The battle still raged. The war was not over, but something greater had been revealed. Not just strength, not just survival, but the truth. Humans were not prey. They were the storm that never ended, and the storm had only just begun.